Hello and welcome to another episode of the BSN Network podcast. Today is Thursday, September 1st. Hope everybody's having a good day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Thursday, September 1st here today. It is the first day of September. We are officially in the month of September as August is now behind us, and I guess that's a good thing and a bad thing. That means summer's starting to come to an end. It's a good thing because football season's around us, and maybe it's a good thing for the Yankees because they had an awful August and just really played poor baseball all August long, and it ends last night with just a tough loss. And now you're only 6 games up, 5 games in the loss column, which is mainly the most important thing, and the Yankees continue to struggle. So it's September, it's a new month, football season, only 10 days away until the first Sunday. We are 1 week away until Bills-Rams, going to be really exciting. I'm super pumped up about it. Bills-Rams, Thursday Night Football. This time next week, we will be talking about the Bills-Rams, so looking forward to that. A lot of excitement in the air for football season. So you go to the Yankees and Mets last night. Yankees get the win Yankees take the loss 3-2. Just could not hit. You had the errors in the infield. Falefa being the big one. Then the 3-run homer by Shohei Ohtani. It was just awful. It was not a good game for the Yankees as they really struggled. And again, we find ourselves in a situation where this Yankee team just continues to struggle. This Yankee team continues to just not come up in big spots, and the bats were quiet, the defense struggling. It's just all over the place, and it's tough. It's a really tough loss. So Yankees will have a much-needed day off today. You look at those 7 games against Oakland, and you look at the 7 games against Oakland and the Angels, and you're looking at 5-2, 6-1. The Yankees go 3-4. So that's just not good. You tie the series after winning the first 2 against Oakland, and you lose the series against the Angels. Yankees are 6 games up. No longer can we fall back on the card that they're 9, 10, 11 games up anymore. They are 6 games up and 5 in the loss column. If they go into Tampa and get swept, it's gonna come to the point where September's gonna be a big month for the Yankees in terms of they might not be able to win the division. So Yankees got to get back to playing baseball that we all know they can. They go through that spurt where they started to win a little bit, and then now they're back to their old ways. It's just this team's just terrible right now, and you really wonder how far is this team even going to go in the postseason. Mets get the win last night as well. Like I mentioned, the 4 highlights last night. There was 4 highlights, not much else. The Brandon Nimmo home run robbery, the Starling Marte 2-run homer, Timmy Trumpet, getting Diaz out of the bullpen, and then Jacob deGrom's outing. That was about the 4. And, you also had the Mookie Betts home run, which was pretty cool. Other than that, it was it was like a 2-hour, 20-minute game, one of the fastest games I've ever seen. I watched the entirety of the game, then flipped to the Yankees. That's when it's crazy. Over the West Coast trip, I've been watching the Mets, and then once the Yankees started, I turned on the Yankees. Last night was one of the rare occasions where I was able to watch the entirety of that Met game, and then the Yankees came on, boom, turned on yes, and it was just like, turned on yes, and they were doing their introduction to the game and stuff. It was like, last night was quick. So only 4 highlights. It was 2-1 win for the Mets, and capped off with obviously the Trumpets getting Diaz out of the bullpen, and he nailed down the save with a quick 1-2-3 ninth inning. So the topics for today's podcast got a lot on tap, I should say, some football and some baseball. We're going to start things off with the AFC North standings and my projection. So on Tuesday, I did the AFC East. Yesterday, I did the NFC East. Today, we're going to go to the North, and we're going to do the AFC North. Tomorrow will be the NFC North, and then next week will be the AFC South, NFC South, AFC West, and we'll finish things off a week from today with the NFC West, which will also be game day, first game of the NFL season. So we'll get to the AFC North today, tell you who's finishing first, who's finishing last, and kind of get you ready for the season and the expectations in the AFC North. We're also going to talk about the Yankees. Kind of mentioned it now, but we're going to really get deep dive into the Yankees and their really recent struggles as they continue to lose, and they're now only 6 games up in the loss column. Or 5 games up in the loss column, 6 total. And the loss column is really the only thing that matters. So Yankees got to find a way to turn things around, because we went from September might be a month where we can rest some of our guys to now we might be in a division race later on in this month if we can't find ways to win. So big series coming up. We'll also finish things off with the New York Sports Update. Yankees day off today. They'll be back in action tomorrow against Tampa. And the Mets will be back in action tonight. Rubber game with a 3-game set. 4:10 Eastern, I think, is the start. I think something like that today. So midday start today for the Mets and Dodgers. Final game of the 3-game set. As the Dodgers will leave town, they look for the series win, and so do the Mets. Rubber game of the 3-game set should be good. All right, so with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So on Tuesday, I did my AFC East. Yesterday, I did my NFC East. And today, I'm going to do my AFC North projection. So I go back and forth each day. One day, tomorrow will be the NFC North. Go back and forth from AFC to NFC. And by Thursday of next week will be the NFC West, and NFC West, and we will complete the full standings predictions. So today we're going to do the AFC North. So last year in the AFC North, the Bengals finished in first. They were 10-7. Steelers came in second at 9-7-1. They did have a tie. The Browns came in third at 8-9, and the Ravens came in last also at 8-9. So the Bengals and the Steelers were the two playoff teams. Steelers obviously got knocked down in the wild card round against Kansas City. The Bengals, as we know, went all the way to the Super Bowl, ended up falling to the Rams in the Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium in L.A., and the Browns and the Ravens both missed the playoffs. So Steelers and Bengals were the two playoff teams last year, and you look at the standings and you look at the teams, and you kind of expect two playoff teams again this year from the AFC North, and we all know how the AFC North is. It's a very physical division. It's a very exciting division. It's a division where games are truly won in the trenches. It's just, there's a lot of excitement, like the good coaching. Coaching really matters in this division. It's a tough, gritty division. And, for the Jets, they're going to have to go up against the AFC North the 4 straight weeks. So a lot of times when you go up against the AFC North, you're going to really, really be able to test your competitiveness because, the Bengals are one of those tough, gritty teams. We know all these years about the Steelers. A lot of these teams are really tough, gritty, and they play just a kind of an old school style of football where it's one in the trenches, just some tough, gritty football. So here are my predictions. So I have finishing in first, the Bengals. Bengals last year, and that's why I think there's going to be two playoff teams here because the division has a lot of talent. But the Bengals I have finishing in first, and we all know what the Bengals are capable of, right? And I think, similar to what I said yesterday about the Eagles, the Bengals got better this year. The Eagles got better last year, or over this past offseason, I should say, right? And that's why I have them finishing in first. I can't say that really that much about the Cowboys. I can say that about the Bengals, though. They got all the way to the Super Bowl last year with no offensive line. And that's one of the hardest things to do in football. In football, you got to get... games are in the AFC North, games are won and lost in the trenches. Somehow the Bengals found a way last year to still get to the Super Bowl with one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen. One of the worst offensive lines, probably the worst offensive line in football. I mean, they're against Tennessee in the playoff game last year. Joe Burrow got sacked 9 times. They still found a way to win. So they were finding ways to win without an offensive line. Burrow was finding ways to make big-time passes, big-time plays without the offensive line. Burrow's one of the better quarterbacks in all football. I do believe that. I'm buying into the Burrow hype. He's a good quarterback. You can't take anything away from him. He got to the Super Bowl last year. He showed much improvement. After tearing his ACL, there was a lot of questions around him, and look what he did last year. Led his team to the Super Bowl. He's got a ton of talent. They got all the boxes checked. You have Trey Hendrickson on defense. Jesse Bates. I know the contract stuff earlier in training camp was kind of an issue. It's kind of all settled now. Jesse Bates out there, one of the better safeties out there. Trey Hendrickson, very good edge rusher, had a very good year last year for them. DJ Hill, there's definitely some pieces on the defense. You look at the offensive side of the ball, it's loaded. T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Jamar Chase. You did lose Yazam in the offseason. Obviously he's going to the Jets, their reliable tight end. But when you look at their offense, Mixon, Burrow, they're 3 receivers, and they got better at the offensive line. I don't see this team. I know some people think last year was one of those one-year wonders. I think they're going to be a conversation again in the AFC. I think they're going to be a playoff team, and they're going to win the AFC North. So my floor for the Bengals is 9-8. It could be 8-9 if things really go south. I just don't foresee it, but it could get as bad as 8-9. I think. I don't think anything worse. I don't think this is something where they're going to win 6 games this year and they're going to have to rethink, Zach Taylor, his future in the entire organization. I don't think that. They're a good team. They got a ton of talent, and their offensive line got better. I think you're going to see Burrow actually be even better this year because he's going to have more time in the pocket. I think their ceiling is 13-4. If things really go right, it could get to 14-3. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to go there. I don't think it's going to be 14-3. I think their ceiling's probably 13-4. There's a couple matchups on there where if Burrow has a big game, they get a turnover or something, it could really change things and really, get him a couple wins. I don't know that I'm going to roll with 13-4. And then my prediction for the Bengals is to win the AFC North, and I have them at finishing 12-5. Again, when you look at their roster, it didn't get worse. It only got better. When you look at a lot of these teams that get better, they're going to, they're going to make big plays. They're going to be a big factor, especially in the AFC. You can't sit here and tell me that this team's not going to be good this year. Last year was a one-year wonder when they got better and they got, their biggest weakness, the offensive line, is no longer the weakness. So I have the Bengals finishing first at 12-5. My second place team is the Baltimore Ravens. Again, very similar to the Bengals. The Ravens, I look at this year with the Ravens, they didn't really get worse, but they didn't make any crazy improvements. I think the biggest thing maybe to cap off the offseason for the Ravens would be you get Lamar Jackson extended and in Baltimore for a long term. Now, when you look at the Ravens, again, it's not like the Bengals where they went out and spent a ton and built up their offensive line or spent a ton on a wide receiver. They did lose Marquise Brown, but you have to hope Rashad Bateman here is going to continue to develop and turn into that true number one receiver, right? They did not have J.K. Dobbins last year. He's coming back. So I look at the Ravens, when you look at the offseason and you look at their defense and you look at what they bring to the table, they got a very good secondary. Very good secondary. And I know they lost Tony Jefferson, but they have a very good secondary, one of the better ones in all football. They have a solid defense. Their offense is very good. When you look at the Ravens, though, a lot of people look at the Ravens. Calais Campbell on defense. I'll start with the defense. Calais Campbell on defense. You look at the other corners, guys like Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey. You have guys like Chuck Clark in the secondary. All those guys. I know Kyle Jefferson's going to the Giants. The safety, that was pretty solid for them, but he's obviously going there. Chuck Clark took over. So, the very good one of the best secondaries in all football. When you look at the Ravens, or when people look at the Ravens roster, they are a true AFC North team. They don't have a great receiving core. They have a tight end, which they utilize a lot, and they have a very good running game, a very good mobile quarterback. That's like the AFC North. Running game. That's how the Ravens are going to hurt you. So when I look at the Ravens this year, I don't think of them as a team that, whenever people look at the Ravens receiving core, they're like, oh, it's terrible. They did lose Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown wasn't good on the Ravens, because he didn't fit. He didn't fit the team. He didn't fit the roster. He's a deep ball threat. He's kind of a flashy receiver. The Ravens don't need that. The Ravens have Rashad Bateman. He's going to get better. He's going to be a threat. They have Mark Andrews. That's all they need, and they get J.K. Dobbins back. So I don't think the Ravens are going to be the Ravens. Again, people say last year is the start of the end of the Harbaugh era. No. If the Ravens didn't go for 2 every single game last year, they probably could have won 10, 11 games and been in the postseason and make some noise as long as Lamar Jackson is healthy. I know there were some concerns about that. Obviously, Huntley had to start against Green Bay last year. The Ravens are a good team. And again, I'm not crazy high on Lamar Jackson. I think Burrow's better than Lamar, my personal opinion, just because he doesn't. Lamar is very run heavy. He sometimes accuracy stuff with that could be a little bit of concern. But look, they're gonna dominate teams in the run game. They are, and they're a good team. They're in the AFC North. When you look at them, and people say, "Oh, they lost Marquise Brown." Yeah, but you have to hope that Rashad Bateman, he's younger, he's going to continue to get better. And they did not have J.K. Dobbins last year. What was that? I think the torn ACL, or he was either ACL or Achilles in training camp last year. Missed the entirety of the season. He's coming back this year. So all those positives last year, they are coming back. So I look at the Ravens as a second-place team. Again, I think this is going to be a race that comes down to the final week or two of the season. I think there's going to be a couple games late in the year that mean a ton for both the Bengals and the Ravens. And I could see the Bengals I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens win the division. I just foresee the Bengals being a little bit of the better team just because they're a little bit more explosive on offense. And I think they're overall on defense. I think the Ravens, I give the edge to the Ravens on defense just because of how good their secondary is. But I give the edge to the Bengals on offense. And I think in big games, the Bengals are going to win these shootouts. So you go to the Ravens. I have their floor at 9-8. So again, if the Bengals struggle this year, it'd be interesting. If the Bengals struggle and the Ravens struggle, and they're at 9-8, 10-7, that would be interesting. I don't think anything worse, though. I have their ceiling at 13-4 as well, very similar to the Bengals. They're very similar teams. And it could be 12-5. Their ceiling could drop down to 12-5 depending on how a couple games go. And my prediction for the Ravens this year is to finish 11-6 and second place in the AFC North. So you now go to the third place and fourth place here. And I have the Steelers finishing in third, which would leave the Browns finishing last. And I want to talk a lot about the Browns here in a second. So I'll try as quick as I can to get to the Steelers. I have the Steelers in third place. I don't have the Steelers making the playoffs. I don't have them finishing above 500. So I think a lot of people have to realize that, the whole Tomlin and finishing over 500 and all that stuff streak is going to end. But I want to just say this about the Steelers. I want to try to keep it short and sweet. The Steelers, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, they have Najee Harris. Their offensive line is kind of a work in progress, but they got a very good defense. Minkah Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt kind of leading the way. When I look at the Steelers, I think this year they leave this season, and I'll give you their record. I think they finish 7-10 this year, but the Steelers leave this year with answers at quarterback being Kenny Pickett is their guy, and they know that, and he's going to be their guy moving forward. So, no, I don't think the Steelers are going to make the playoffs. I know some people think they might run the table and go 9-8, 10-7, and make some noise in the AFC North. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're talented enough. I think they need a little bit more talent at the receiving core. I think maybe a little bit more help at the offensive line. But one thing I will tell you, the Steelers, and again, we don't really know who the quarterback is, and it's tough because I tried my best to kind of gauge how the Steelers were going to do based on who's going to be at quarterback. Because I think if, Mitch, early on in the year, I think they're probably going to start with Trubisky. But it's tough because there's a couple games where if Kenny Pickett's playing, they might lose those games. Like if they're playing against, the Patriots week 2 and Mitch Trubisky's playing, they might win that game. And the reason I say that is because Belichick dominates rookie quarterbacks. So that might be an extra win. So maybe you get to the 8-win mark. It's possible. But I think the Steelers are going to end this year. And yes, when you look at the record 7-10, not great, especially for a Steelers team that has wins every year and seems to be in the conversation every single season. A team that last year, yes, they barely got in, but they got to the postseason last year. I think the Steelers this season are going to get to are going to get the 7 wins, are going to go 7-10. No, they're not going to make the playoffs. No, I don't think late in the year, maybe late in the year, they're playing a couple meaningful games. But I think this is a team that's going to go into next season, go into the offseason knowing that their quarterback is Kenny Pickett, and also going to go build around him, and in next year you really can explode. That's how I feel about the Steelers. So let me just give you their floor. Their floor, I think, is 4-13, 5-12, and I'll tell you their floor. It's not a specific record. The Steelers' floor, similar to a lot of other teams with young quarterbacks, is if they don't come out of this year confident in what they saw to Kenny Pickett. That's their floor. Again, if they come out of this year, their ceiling, I have their ceiling. And this is what's crazy. I have the Steelers ceiling at 10-7. It could be 9-8, but the Steelers do have some talent. And again, they have this is the one thing that the Steelers about some other teams don't have. The Steelers have a very good defense. They're not going to need Kenny Pickett to go out there and throw 5 touchdowns and 400 yards every week. They have a good defense. They're going to hold opponents a lot of times under, 24, 30 points. It's going to be a lot of 17, 14, 2017 type games. So if their defense plays well and Kenny Pickett does just enough, they might be able to upset some teams. And they could maybe get to the 9-10 win mark and make a little bit of noise. But that's my ceiling. I don't think it's going to happen just because I think you're going to have your general growing pains with Pickett. But it does have potential to be that way. And again, back to the floor. Your floor is if you see not much positives this year out of Pickett and you go into the offseason just hoping that you build around him and next year he takes the jump. Your ceiling is 10-7. Pickett plays well and you're like, man, we got something here. And my actual prediction is they go 7-10. I think that's my actual prediction. I think that's fair. It's going to be, Trubisky, Pickett. If they start with Pickett, we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to roll with my prediction 7-10. But they get the answer at quarterback. Pickett's their guy. They go into the offseason, build around him a little bit more, give him what he needs, and you go from here. He got a good tight end, Freiermuth. He's got 2 solid receivers. He's got a running back. He's got all the weapons. It's just, rookie quarterback, it might take a little bit of time. You always have to expect a little bit of a learning curve. So I have the Steelers finishing 7-10 in third place. And the last place team, I think this is obvious, and I think they'll be one of the worst teams in football this year. Them or the Texans, is the Browns. I don't even know what to say about the Browns. They're right. Watson's going to be suspended for the first 11 weeks of the season. You're going to have Jacoby Brissett as your quarterback for the first 11 weeks of the season. It's bad. It's really bad in Cleveland. And I think, if you're a Browns fan, you should go into this year with low expectations. they don't. I mean, you're gonna have Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett's not good. He stinks. You look at the Browns' schedule. It is brutal. They might win one game. Jacoby Brissett might hand the starting keys over to Deshaun Watson week 11 when they're like 2-9, 1-10. That's how bad it could get. And when Watson comes back, people have to realize, and this is why people think there still are some people that think out there like if they run the ball with Chubb. And they keep running it. And they got Myles Garrett, got Denzel Ward on defense, got some pieces there. And they stop, do just enough on defense, and they win some of these close games. They might hand the keys over to Watson 5-5 or 5-6. And Watson could win, 4 or 5 straight games, get him into the postseason. No. You have to realize, people, Jacoby Brissett stinks. He's not a good quarterback. Number 2, when Watson comes back, he hasn't played in a football game in over a year and a half. The last time he played in a football game was in 2020. And then last year he did not play at all, and the first 11 weeks of this year he didn't play. So Watson has not played in a football game over a year and a half. There's going to be some rustiness. There's going to be some, in a way, like growing pains with the offense because it's going to be his first time really working within the offense, and it's week 11. And the schedule, when Watson comes back, they got to play teams like the Bills. They got to play teams like the Bucs. They got to play some other AFC North opponents. I think the Ravens and the Bengals still might be on their schedule. I mean, it's a gauntlet. It's not like they get the Lions, the Jaguars, the Texans, and the, and I don't, in the, it's not like they get those teams, or the Bears. It's not like they get those teams for 4 straight weeks, and they can make it, interesting. No, they stink. The Browns are not good. They lost Landry, Beckham obviously last year as well. They lost their quarterback situation's not good. Kareem Hunt requested a trade. Sure, your defense has some pieces. You do have David Njoku. You have some weapons. You just don't have the quarterback. You don't have the quarterback. And I think that's, you did sign Amari Cooper, which is a big signing. You just don't have the quarterback. And I think this year the Browns are going to go into the offseason, and there's going to be questions. I do. Do you, because if things really go bad, do you have the players that start to, kind of fall, do players start to, kind of, move away from Stefanski? Does he start to lose respect around that locker room? Does the organization start to feel like if this Stefanski, this Stefanski can't win, or do they feel like that? It's just things could really go. If the Browns start out 1-10, you can't tell me there's not going to be friction in that locker room and that Stefanski's his job's going to be safe. There's going to be questions going into the offseason. Because if you start to see guys and maybe friction in the locker room and the first sign of adversity and really bad things like, players start to lose respect for Stefanski, that's really bad. Because then, you have Watson, and then too, like, even if Watson comes, let's just say Watson comes back and he struggles. Do you trust him for the next 5 years to be, number one, not make dumb decisions off the field, and number two, make the right decisions and be consistently out there? Because he's missed an entire year because he held out, and now he's missing 11 games because the off-the-field issues. Can you trust him to stay on the field? And if he goes out there, and I don't know, in his 5-6 games he'll play this year, throws 6 touchdowns and 7 or 8 interceptions, can you really trust him next year? Number one, to not run into any trouble, and number two, to be that guy. And you might have another head coach then. The Browns are in a terrible spot. Why did they sign Watson to begin with? I don't know. I don't know why. It's a dumb decision. And the Browns are going to be terrible. They're going to be terrible. They don't have a quarterback. Again, quarterbacks are so important in this league. They don't have a quarterback. They don't. So, and too, people, you might look at the schedule and you say, oh, well, we might be able to. You look at the matchups. Look at the matchups that the Browns have once, and people could sit here and say this, right? Okay, great. Watson might come back. Look at the teams that they have to play once Watson comes back. They're going to have to play teams like the Bills. They have to play teams like the Buccaneers. They're going to have the Bengals on the road. They're going to have the Ravens. They're going to have the Steelers on the road. It's a tough place to play. It used to be Heinz Field. Now it's some other dumb name. But just telling you that when Watson comes back, it's not an easy schedule. I mean, I believe the first week Watson comes back is week 11, right? I believe, or week 12 or whatever. I believe his first game he comes back might be on the road in Buffalo. That's tough. On the road in Buffalo against the Bills, that's not easy. Oh, yeah, then you got to turn around. Yeah, you're home, but you got to play the Bucs. Ooh, that's not good either. 2 of the top 5 defenses in football for a guy that hasn't played in a year and a half. So, again, I don't know. People could sit here and say, oh, the Browns might make some noise if Brissett can get them to 5-5, 6-5, but great. When Watson comes back, look at the teams he's got to play. Bills, Bucks, he's got the Bengals on the road, he's got the Ravens, and he's got the Steelers. 5 teams that are more than capable of beating the Browns. And 3 of those on the road. Because you got to go on the road in Bengals, you got to go on the road in Buffalo, and you got to go on the road to Pittsburgh. You are home for the Bucks and the Ravens, but still, it's not going to be easy. So, I have the Browns this season. Their floor at 4-13. It could be 3-14, but I will tell you, you do look at the schedule, and there are a couple like automatic wins on there. I think the Texans is a win, and I would probably go ahead and say the Falcons is a win, and that's about it. Maybe one more win. So, again, 2 to 3 wins. I think if Watson might be able to lead them to the victory against like Washington or something, or maybe New Orleans, so they get the 3-4 wins. So my floor is 4-13. It could also be 3-14, either one. My ceiling 6-11. I don't think they're going to be good. Even if Watson plays well when he comes back, they're not going to be good. Jacoby Brissett, I think, is just going to get him to too deep of a hole. When Watson takes over, they might be 1-10. It's a realistic possibility. I mean, look at their schedule the first half of the season. It's the Panthers, the Jets, Steelers, Falcons, Chargers, Patriots, Ravens, Bengals, Dolphins, and then Bills, and then so on and so forth. And Watson should be back by then. That's your schedule. I mean, your easiest matchup on there is probably the Falcons. And the Falcons, I can make the argument. It's a tough argument to make, but you can make the argument Mariota could outperform Brissett. You can make that argument. Look at all the other teams that they got to play. I mean, Trubisky's better than Brissett. Kenny Pickett's better than Brissett. Justin Herbert better. Mac Jones better. I mean, even if Zach Wilson's out there, Zach Wilson's better. Baker Mayfield's better. They're all better than Jacoby Brissett. They all are. Jacoby Brissett's not good. So the people out there saying, when we get Watson, you're going to probably be 1-10, 2-9 when Watson comes back. Watson's not going to go on an 8-game win streak. He doesn't have enough games to do it. So ceiling is 6-11, could be 7-10 if maybe Watson goes on a little bit of a run. I don't see it. And my prediction is they hit their floor. I think the Browns go 4-13, maybe 3-14. I mean, I think they go 4-13. I think they probably pick up a win against the Falcons week 4 rather. And then they lose, and then they might pick up a win later in the year against the Texans. Maybe they beat the Washington late, maybe New Orleans. So maybe they get to the 4-win mark. But my prediction is 4-13, and they finish last. And again, you look at this division in the AFC North. Quarterbacks are all good, other than the Browns. Bengals have their quarterback. Ravens have their guy. Although, if he stays there, if he gets extended. Steelers, I think they'll go into the offseason knowing that Pickett's their guy. The Browns are going to go into the offseason with more questions than answers. I think the locker room might lose a little bit of Stefanski's respect. Do you really trust Watson to be consistently out there with the off-the-field issues and just the way he is? Who knows? So, out of these 2 teams, out of these 4 teams, I have the Bengals and the Ravens both making the playoffs. So, my playoffs now in the AFC. I got 3 playoff teams so far. Bills, Ravens, Bengals are my 3 playoff teams. So 7 make it, 4 more from the AFC South and the AFC West. So that is my AFC North predictions. Comment down below if you agree. Bengals finishing in first at 12-5. Ravens finishing in second at 11-6. Steelers finishing in third at 7-10. And the Browns finishing in dead last, and I mean dead last, all the way in the basement at 4-13. And I have the Bengals and the Ravens making the playoffs. So on Monday will be my AFC South. We'll be back in the AFC on Monday. And then tomorrow will be NFC North, which is the Vikings, Packers, Bears, and Lions. And that's a very tough division because I think the Vikings are much improved. What are the Packers going to be like without Rodgers? Lions are interesting, and the Bears stink. So it's an interesting division. And again, the Lions, they might not have the best talent, but Dan Campbell seems to have his players pretty locked in and believing into what he's preaching. It's just a matter of putting it all out there. The NFC North, very interesting. The toughest division so far was the NFC East because every year there's a new winner. The AFC East was pretty easy. AFC North, I knew what I wanted. I knew what I was going to do there. NFC North is going to be tough because you don't know what the Packers are going to be without. Like I said, you don't know what the Packers are going to be without Devontae Adams. The Vikings should be better. Bears are not good. And the Lions are an interesting team where maybe they can win 6-7 games and be a competitive football team. There's a possibility if they can find ways to hold on to games and not blow leads. So NFC North will be tomorrow to close out the week. All right, so now we're going to shift gears here and get into a little bit of baseball. I've talked, obviously, every day I talk baseball on this show, to open things and then I'll close things out with baseball. But I really wanted to just talk, have a full topic of baseball here and specifically talk about the New York Yankees because, and again, I know the Mets are doing great things right now and they're winning and, they took a win, they got a win last night against the Dodgers and, they go for the series win today and you had the 4 highlights last night in the Met game. I looked at that Met game and you have 4 highlights. The Edwin Diaz coming out with the trumpets. Yeah, Jacob deGrom start. Starling Marte's home run, Brandon Nimmo's home run robbery, which was a phenomenal catch, by the way. He doesn't catch that ball, Justin Turner that hit it. It's a completely different ball game. You might be talking about a Met loss today and them trying to salvage the final game instead of going for the series win today. So it's crazy, what plays like that can do. And again, Brandon Nimmo's a guy, and I don't want to turn this into a Met segment, but Brandon Nimmo's a guy that his bat has not been as good as it was earlier in the year. And he's still making plays defensively. That is one of the better things. Again, you look at a guy like an Aaron Hicks, and I'm not trying to compare Brandon Nimmo and Aaron Hicks. It's complete polar opposites. Brandon Nimmo is so much better than Aaron Hicks. Aaron Hicks is terrible. But if you get what I'm saying, like Aaron Hicks, when he was struggling with the bat, he started to make errors in the field. Like it just mentally, he was so out of it, he couldn't do anything. Nimmo is a guy that even though his bat's been a little cooler recently, has shown some maybe sparks of trying to get going, but he's still making plays defensively. That's the sign of a good baseball player. Aaron Hicks, that's the sign of a bad baseball player. When you're not making plays, look at Gleyber Torres. Making errors in the field translates to the at-bats. Strikes out, makes an error in the field. Nimmo's a guy that his defense has always remained consistent. And I think that's why sometimes he gets a wrong amount of hate from Met fans, whereas Met fans sometimes crush him if he goes through slumps, but he's always going to be making plays defensively. He's a very good defender. So he made another play last night. He really had 5 highlights, because then the Mookie Betts home run as well. But that was a solo shot. And it's Mookie Betts. So not crazy surprising there. Not that it's crazy surprising to see Nimmo make plays and DeGrom dominate, but those are your highlights. Yesterday in the Yankee game, there weren't many highlights for the Yankees. Really the main highlight for the game was the Ohtani home run, which I have to say something. Look, I'm not against Ohtani. I think, it's very cool that he's pitching and hitting. And I'm going to get to the Yankees here, and I'm really going to take a deep dive into these struggles and why the Yankees might find themselves in a situation where they might have to battle for the division down the stretch here because they're only 6 games up, 5 up in the loss column. That's a big issue. But I have to talk about Ohtani and Judge because Ohtani last night, he hit the homer, and I get all of this, cool, Ohtani's this, Ohtani's that. He pitches, he hits, he's got an ERA below 3, he's got a batting average in the 260s. I get all that. But Judge is the MVP, and there's not really much of an argument. Okay, Judge is 10 home runs away from Ty Roger Maris, a record that nobody ever thought would be able to be beat for Yankee history. And he might very well put up 66, 67 homers this year and still bat over 300. In a contract year, lead the league in RBIs. Okay, Judge is the MVP. No matter, you can't twist it another way. He's an MVP. And Andy Martino made one of the dumbest articles of all time the other day. He said that, he doesn't have a reporter for SNY. And I don't want to crush the guy. I really don't know anything about him. I don't really follow him. But he made one of the dumbest articles of all time yesterday when he went out and said, or the other day, he said, Judge can't win the MVP until he starts pitching. So you're basically telling me, Andy Martino, that every year until Ohtani's retired, he's going to win the MVP because he pitches and hits. Judge is the MVP. You can't even line it up. Look at the numbers. Oh, Judge doesn't pitch. Okay. Look at the batting numbers. Judge is beating him in every category. Okay. I'm done with this. And again, I'm done with this Ohtani stuff remove Aaron Judge from the Yankees. Aaron Judge is, the Yankees stink. If you remove Aaron Judge from the Yankees, they stink. If you remove Shohei Ohtani from the Angels are still bad. You put Shohei Ohtani in, they're still bad. You remove Aaron Judge from the Yankees, they're gonna sink. You put Aaron Judge on the Yankees, he's the only one doing anything. If Aaron Judge doesn't hit, the Yankees don't win. If Shohei doesn't hit, the Angels win sometimes. So, just telling you that. Most valuable. Remember that. And Michael Kay had a really good tweet. Most valuable. If you remove Shohei from the Angels, there's still 20 games below 500. Insert Shohei on the Angels, there's still 20 games below 500. You remove Judge from the Yankees, they're sinking. You put Judge on the Yankees, they're a first-place team. So I wanted to get that out there because it's like these people love Shohei. Like, enough. Judge is chasing history. Great, good Shohei can pitch and hit. Phenomenal. He won the MVP last year. Look at the numbers. Judge is 10 times better. Not even an argument. It's a dumb argument. It's a dumb argument. So the Yankees lost yesterday. I wanted to get that off my chest because it's so stupid when you see these people make these dumb articles and it's like, what are you talking about? It's just stupid. So, yesterday the Yankees lose 3-2. You had the errors in the infield, by Falefa, and then you had, the errors, and, then you had the whole, the errors in the infield, Falefa being the main one, then Shohei comes up and hits a 3-run homer, and you lose 3-2, and it was just terrible. And I don't really know what what the situation here was with the Yankees. People could say, you really can't fall back on the injury card anymore. Giancarlo's back, and, he's just a little bit of a slow start for him. It's a really bad situation for the Yankees. It really is. And the Yankees find themselves in a situation where they're 6 games up in the AL East and 5 up in the loss column, which is really the only thing that means anything because you can, you can't make games up in the loss column. You make them up in the win column, not in the loss column. So there's 6 games up total, 5 in the loss column. And that's just terrible. I mean, that's terrible for the Yankees. And, for a team that was 12, 13 games up, they're now 6 games up total, and they got to go play Tampa. And the Yankees right now are playing terrible baseball. They're not hitting with runners in scoring position. The Yankees are doing everything that we saw last year. Overly reliant on the home run ball. If they don't hit a home run, they lose the game. That's really what it's come down to for this Yankee team. 2 runs last night. You go 3-4 in 7 games against the A's and the Angels. Come on. This isn't like we have a 7-game stretch against the Dodgers and the Mets and the Blue Jays and the Astros. This is a 7-game stretch against the A's, who are 49-82, and the Angels, who are 57-74. 2 teams that are way below 500. You went 3-4 in those 7 games. And something I've talked about a lot this year, earlier in the year, was the way the Yankees played against the bad teams. And a lot of people were like, oh, the Yankees are playing all these bad teams. But I always said the good teams beat up on the bad teams. Bad teams lose to the bad teams. Right now, the Yankees are playing like a bad team. Dare I say they are a bad team. They are losing games to the Angels. They are losing games to the A's. Earlier in the year, they would dominate these teams. Earlier in the year when the Angels went to Yankee Stadium, Noah Syndergaard didn't even get out of 2 innings. They put up 8 runs on them. This is terrible. This is exactly what we saw last year out of the Yankees, where they were losing games when they didn't hit homers. They were overly reliant on the home run ball. The pitching was very finicky, and they're just not playing good, fundamentally sound baseball. And they're now 6 games up. And I don't want to hear from fans, oh, they're 6 games up. They're no longer can we fall back on 9, 10, 11 games up. They are 6 games up now in the division. 6 games up in the division. That's terrible. Terrible. We find ourselves in a position where the Yankees, if they go into Tampa, which is a real possibility, if they go into Tampa and get swept this weekend, there is a real possibility where we have to, the rest of the way, we're going to have to fight for the division. It's a true, real chance. Because if we lose to the Rays, things don't get much better. Then you got to play the Twins, then you got to play the Rays again. Then you have the Red Sox, then you have the Brewers, Pirates, Red Sox, Blue Jays, Orioles. You close out the year with 4 against Texas. So their schedule is not extremely difficult. But again, when you look at the Yankees' schedule right now, they're losing to everybody. They're losing to the A's. They're losing to the Angels. They're probably going to lose to the Rays. Pitching's not good. Hitting's not good. This lineup's just not good. It's just not. I don't know what more has to be said. Josh Donaldson's not good. You're making errors in the infield. Hicks stinks. And I mean, you could sit here and say, oh, Matt Carpenter's out of lineup. I get that, but you can't be overly reliant on that one guy. You can't. Rizzo is still, up in the air. He's got some back issues, and he's been struggling, and it's just, what's going on here? Gleyber Torres is terrible. I mean, he goes through stretches where he looks like one of the better second basemen in the American League, and he goes through stretches like he is now where his on-base percentage all the way down to .292. I mean, this Yankee lineup's not doing anything at all. And what we saw earlier in the year was they were winning games, hitting with runners in scoring position, good offense, good defense, good decision-making, good bullpen. That is all gone. The bullpen isn't what it is, although I have to be fair, Loaisiga's been better, so that's been a nice arm to kind of get back in the rhythm. But the bullpen still isn't where it is. You got Chapman getting infections from tattoos. You got Clay Holmes who's back, but what Clay Holmes are you going to get? Are you going to get the Clay Holmes you saw earlier in the year, or are you going to get the Clay Holmes that we saw recently, and that is one of the worst closers that we have, one of the worst pitchers in our bullpen? What Clay Holmes are you going to get? I don't think it's outrageous to say we could get the Clay Holmes that we saw earlier in the year, but it's also a possibility that magic's run out, and players have started to figure out Clay Holmes. I mean, it's terrible. And look, the Yankees have gone down all these avenues. Like, you brought up Oswaldo Cabrera, who's been great, but that was supposed to be the young spark. It hasn't worked. And Cabrera's been fun to watch defensively, offensively. He's been fun to watch. Not sitting here to crush Cabrera. I'm just sitting here and saying, they brought up that young spark, still not working. This team's, dead. It has no energy. It's so frustrating. And when you see these, and again, I've been very, very... I backed up Isaiah Connor-Fleff a lot this year, and I'll still sit here and back him up because I think Yankee fans are blowing out of proportion. Fleff, Yankee fans have to realize IKF did not come here to bat 300 and crank in 20 home runs. That wasn't why we got him. He's a stopgap. If you're a Yankee fan, look up the definition of a stopgap shortstop. Okay? It's not supposed to be a guy that's going to come in here, rack up 30 home runs, bat 310 and be in the MVP conversation. That's not what IKF is. And I understand the error was bad last night, but the Yankee fans, there's a lot of, look at the advanced analytics. He's a stopgap shortstop. He's not a guy that's going to be here for the next 10 years. He's here to bridge the gap between now and Volpe. Come on, let's be real here. Use your head. All these Yankee fans crushing Fleff, I understand last night was a terrible ever, and I backed him up a lot this year. But all these people saying, call Peraza. You all wanted another guy. You all wanted these guys called up. Then now they call up the players, and they're still not working. I think the bottom line is this team's just not good enough. That's what I think. And that's what I see. They lose again last night, 3-2. And in those 7 games, where I said at the beginning of it, maybe they go 6-1, 5-2, 4-3 at worst. Actually, 5-2 most likely at worst, because that would mean you take 3 or 4 against the A's and you take 2 or 3 against the Angels. If you go 5-2, or if you go 4-3, that would mean you had to lose 2 against either the Angels or the A's. So I said at worst 5-2. At best, you go 7-0, which was a possibility. Given at best, you probably go 6-1. I didn't see the Yankees going 5-0. I could see the A's or the Angels stealing a game. Instead, the Yankees come out of those 7 games 3-4. And they've got 3 more games on this road trip to write in it. If they lose these 3 games, that's a 3-7 road trip, and they probably find themselves 3 games up, and they got to play the Twins, and then they got to play the Rays again at home. And I want to tell you something, because this just shows you how concerned you should be if you're a Yankee fan. The Rays today play the Yankees, and they have 3 against the Red Sox. And the reason I point that out is because the Red Sox are not good. Twins are a better team, I think, than the Red Sox. Yankees got to play the Twins coming up. We'll see. I mean, I think the Yankees should beat the Twins, but the way they're playing, the way this team's playing, it's just, and again, I don't want to sit here and sound like the season's over. I don't want to act like that. I don't want to sit here and sound like that. But what I am going to say is it is definitely concerning what we're seeing. And I have always said, do I think this team's going to win a championship? No. I said it at the beginning of the year. I don't think this team's it. I don't think they have the potential. I've said it from the start. I did buy in when they were playing really well, but now it's like, this isn't surprising. It's not. It's not surprising. It's not surprising to see this team struggle. Because what Cashman has put out there is a bunch of old guys, a lot of old guys that really can't hit. What is Josh Donaldson providing us right now? What is he doing right now? What is he providing us? It's really, really, really bad baseball. I mean, it's bad baseball. And Yankees last night make two bad errors. You have the error by Donaldson, the error by Falefa. They had 3 hits, which is sad. They almost had the same amount of hits as errors. 3 hits last night. 3 hits. Terrible. Just terrible. So Yankees fall to 79-52 on the season, and they find themselves now. At one time, they were 12-13 games up in the division. They now find themselves 6 games up, 5 in the loss column. So Yankees are in a really, really, really bad spot, and it's gotten to a point now where the Yankees are way out of contention in the AL. They're 5 games back of the Astros in the American League. So if everything goes normal and things don't go crazy, it's going to be the Astros hosting the Yankees for the rest of this season. So that's where we are. That's where we've gotten to with this Yankee team. It's frustrating. It's bad baseball. It's embarrassing. But it is what it is. This is where we're at. So Yankees fall 3-2. They'll be back in action tomorrow night against the Rays. And, I guess we'll see. Outside of Judge, LeMahieu's been solid. But outside of those 2 guys, Rizzo struggled. Trevino's been all right, but he's just not, he's good. He's nothing special. You look at the infield, like, Torres is terrible. Benintendi's been good. Judge has been good. Stanton, is streaky, but when he's good, he's good. Hicks is terrible. Look, like I said, IKF is a stopgap. That's all he is. It is what he is. That's what he is. He's a stopgap. So, I mean, it's... Do I, is IKF somebody that you truly call a threat? I don't know. I wouldn't can sit here and call him a threat, but, I mean, maybe he is in a lineup. I don't know. It's tough because this is a team that we knew the issues with this team last year. And we go into this year again, and it's like the same thing. Like, the Yankees are they're cheap all of a sudden. They go out and trade for Josh Donaldson. What are we doing? A guy that's 7 years out of his prime. Everyone was talking about, he's an MVP. Yeah, 2015. It's 2022. That's 7 years ago. He was a lot younger in 2015 than he is now. This falls on Cashman. It falls on Cashman. And yet you hear that they probably are going to extend him because they love the guy because they love losing all of a sudden. And a complete embarrassment right now with the New York Yankees. Embarrassing. Very, very embarrassing. All right, so let's get to the New York sports update and the rest of baseball today. As the Yankees continue to lose, and when will they win again? I don't know. I guess we'll see. As for the New York sports update, here we go. So, got the Tigers, Mariners today, White Sox, Royals, Nationals, A's, Orioles, Guardians, Rangers, Red Sox, Braves, Rockies, Brewers, Diamondbacks. So Dodgers, Mets tonight, 4:10 Eastern, MLB Network, SNY. Mets come into tonight's game 83-48. Dodgers come into tonight's game 90-39. The Dodgers got Clayton Kershaw on the mound. He's 7-3 with a 2.64 ERA. I believe this is his first game back since coming off the IL. And the Mets got Chris Bassett on the mound. He's 11-7 with a 3.34 ERA. So looking forward to tonight's game with the Mets Dodgers. A little 4:10 game action on the East Coast. And as for fantasy baseball, I'm currently losing my one league 131-115. Today I've got going on the mound nobody in my one league, and my main league I'm currently losing 138-120. So, and I've got Chris Bassett on the mound today. So I got to figure something out because right now I'm starting to lose a little bit in fantasy baseball. Things are starting to go downhill a little bit, and it's not great. So, by the way, tomorrow is Friday. And it'll be kind of a football Friday because you got college football on Saturday. So that's going to be good. That's going to be fun. Looking forward to that. Couple good matchups. Ohio State, I think Notre Dame. A couple good matchups there. Looking forward to that. And then, so tomorrow we will wrap up the week. I will give you my NFC North standings. And then Monday will be my AFC South. Tuesday will be NFC South. Wednesday will be AFC West. And then Thursday will be NFC West along with the Bills-Rams preview. I give you my power rankings. And we get going with the NFL season. That's 1 week from today. So looking forward to all that. Tomorrow we'll come back, wrap things up for the week, and take you into Labor Day weekend, and be back at it on Monday. So looking forward to that. Tomorrow, NFC North standings, so look out for that. That should be good. A little bit here, I'll get those standings ready and going. NFC North is going to be interesting. Like I said, it's going to be. There's a couple divisions that are going to be interesting, and I've always said this. The AFC North was pretty easy. AFC is pretty easy. NFC is tough. NFC North is going to be tough. AFC South is going to be tough because there's not really great teams. Like the Colts are all right. Titans kind of got worse. Jaguars and Texans aren't going to be in the equation. Jaguars are going to be better, but they're not going to win the division. They're not going to be competing for the divisions, and the Texans stink. You go to the NFC South, it's interesting. Saints, what are you going to get at Winston? Panthers, they got weapons, but what is Baker? Buccaneers, and the Falcons aren't good. Buccaneers should be good. Do you get to playoff? Did the Saints squeak in? And then AFC West is going to be the hardest because I'm going to have to figure out of the 4 teams, the Chargers led by Herbert, Chiefs led by Mahomes, Broncos led by Russell Wilson, and the Raiders led by Derek Carr. I'm going to have to figure out who's going to win that division. And who's not who's going to win that division. I have to figure out who's not going to make the playoffs in that division. You're going to have a team in that division that goes 8-9 and doesn't make the playoffs. It's this serious. 9-8. The last place team's probably going to be 8-9, 9-8. That's seriously how good that division is. There's going to be a lot of good games. Every week in the AFC, there's going to be a good game because it's going to be like the Chiefs-Chargers or the Chiefs-Raiders, because you're going to have all those matchups. So that's going to be good. That's going to be fun. NFC West is going to be tough because you don't, what are the Cardinals with Kyler Murray? Do you trust them? Rams should be good, but what are the Niners with Trey Lance? Seahawks aren't going to be good. NFC's tough. How do you get the rest of the playoff teams? Because right now, you kind of look at it and you say, all right, it's possible there's 2 from the NFC North. It's possible there's 2 from the NFC East. So does that mean 1 from the NFC South and 1 NFC West? So that means that the Cardinals aren't going to make the NFC's tough. NFC's weird. So is the AFC's easier to find out who's in the playoffs because there's going to be 3 teams in the AFC West. I have a feeling there is, but it's like, who are those 3 teams going to be? So it's going to be interesting. So look out. Tomorrow will be our NFC North standings projections to finish out the week. So that will do it for another episode of the BSN podcast. As always, hope you enjoyed it. I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.